December 18th, 1943. Abruzzi Mountains, Italy. A cold mist clings to the olive groves as Corporal David "Davy" Mercer of the Loyal Edmonton Regiment pulls his scarf tighter, fighting a shiver that has nothing to do with winter. His breath rattles, his legs tremble. Every few steps he has to blink hard to stay upright. The fever crawls under his skin like ants. Behind him, the line of Canadians trudges forward, coughing, limping, sweating through their battle dress in the December chill. Helmets clink, rifles rattle. Somewhere in the column, someone retches. Another man collapses to his knees before a sergeant drags him back up. They are marching not toward rest or treatment, but toward Ortona, the fortress town where German Fallschirmjäger are waiting to fight to the last man. Mercer wipes a bead of sweat from his eyebrows. He hasn't slept in 36 hours. His stomach cramps from dysentery. Lice have chewed red welts into his neck. His temperature feels volcanic, yet the freezing wind stabs through him. A medic had whispered the word that no infantryman wanted to hear. Trench fever. Spread by lice. Deadly if untreated. Debilitating when ignored. And today, it is being ignored. Because the medics are gone, pulled back to deal with casualties from the Moro River. Because replacements haven't arrived. Because the Germans aren't waiting. A mule carrying ammunition stumbles on the slick mud and crashes sideways. The pack bursts open, revealing helmets filled with wriggling lice that men have burned out of their clothing the night before. A private mutters, "Christ, they're everywhere!" Another soldier smears gun-cleaning oil onto a raw lesion on his arm, hissing from the sting. They ran out of disinfectant 2 days ago. Socks were boiled in helmets that morning, a desperate attempt to kill the lice eggs before they hatched again. The column halts. Mercer leans on his Lee Enfield No. 4 rifle like a crutch. Major John Shankland walks down the line, his voice hoarse from fever as well. "Listen up! Ortona is ahead! Germans have mined every doorway, every window, every street, but we push forward. No matter how sick we are, the division needs that town." A man near the rear whispers, "We're dying before we even get there." The statement isn't wrong. Malaria is tearing through the platoons, shaking men with violent chills. Dysentery weakens them until they can barely lift their rifles. And trench fever, the silent parasite, makes their joints scream with pain. But nothing stops the march. Hours later, the Canadians crest a small ridge. Ortona rises in the distance, a medieval maze of broken stone, shattered bell towers, and narrow corridors perfect for ambush. Black smoke curls upward from earlier bombardments. Mercer swallows hard. He can feel the fever deep in his spine now, pulsing like a second heartbeat. Sergeant Hall approaches him. "You good, Davy?" Mercer forces a dry smile. "No one here is good, Sarge." Hall nods grimly. "Then we fit right in." The sound of distant MG-42 fire snaps through the cold air. The Battle of Ortona is beginning. December 20th, 1943. Western edge of Ortona. The first shot of the day is not German. It's a Canadian private vomiting behind a shattered stone wall, shaking violently as trench fever rips through his gut. A moment later, the real gunfire begins. Corporal Mercer presses his back against a splintered doorway, trying to steady his breathing. Every inhale is a punishment. Every exhale leaves him lightheaded. His vision blurs just as German fire spits dust into his face. The Loyal Edmonton Regiment has just learned the truth. Ortona is not a town. It is a trap. Streets barely wide enough for a cart, windows designed for crossfire, rubble that swallows footsteps, and every corner carries the metallic smell of explosives. An anti-tank mine detonates 3 buildings away. The concussion travels down the alley, raining glass across Mercer's helmet. He winces as a fresh wave of fever surges through him. "On your feet!" Sergeant Hall shouts. But half the platoon is already standing, because lying down means never getting up again. A young private, Harris, pulls at his collar. "My lice are driving me insane." He slaps at his neck where red streaks are forming. Mercer answers through clenched teeth. "Burn them, tonight. Use your mess tin. Already did, Harris whispers. They came back. A burst of MG-42 fire forces them to dive into the nearest structure, a house ripped in half by shelling. The interior reeks of mold, sewage, and something sweet and rotten. Dysentery buckets from German positions litter the corners. The Canadians' boots splash through contaminated puddles. Lieutenant Fraser kneels near a collapsed staircase, scanning the shadows. Paratroopers inside the next block, he says. They've sealed off the street with mines. We'll need to mouse hole. Mickey mousing, blasting holes between adjoining buildings to fight through the walls instead of streets. Mercer braces his rifle and tries to steady his trembling hands. The fever makes his bones feel hollow. His sweat feels cold. Each heartbeat echoes like a hammer inside his skull. Private Harris whispers, "We shouldn't be fighting. We should be in a field hospital." Sergeant Hall cuts him off. "There is no hospital, there is Ortona. Move!" Outside, mortar shells fall in staggering rhythm. Boom. Pause. Boom. Pause. Each impact sends clouds of black dust swirling into the ruined room. As the platoon crouches low, Mercer notices something horrific. A man near the rear has 2 bloody streaks running from his ears. Not from shrapnel, but from scratching lice bites open until they bled. The sickness is eating them alive faster than the enemy. A second lieutenant arrives breathless, stumbling as he enters the ruined house. "The Van Deus have casualties stacking up at the church square. We can't evacuate anyone. The routes are mined or covered by snipers. Men are bleeding out in the pews." Fraser curses under his breath. "All right, we move through these houses and push north. If we break their line, maybe we can buy enough time to pull our wounded back." No one says what they all know. Many of those wounded already have fevers no surgeon could stop. Mercer takes point. His boots crunch on broken tile as he approaches the wall separating them from the next building. He pulls a gammon bomb from his pouch, the plastic explosive sweating in his feverish grip. "Fire in the hole," he whispers. The explosion tears a ragged doorway through the stone. Dust floods the air. The platoon charges through. On the other side, a kitchen filled with overturned tables, shattered dishes, and a German rifle lying abandoned near a doorway. The air smells of burned bread and gunpowder. A shadow flickers. A German paratrooper lunges from behind a cupboard, knife flashing. Mercer reacts on instinct, not strength. His fever slows him, but his training saves him. He fires point blank, the blast echoing through the room. The body collapses. Mercer stumbles, almost going down with it. Hall grabs him by the shoulder. "You all right?" Mercer nods, though he's not sure. His legs feel like wet rope. His vision pulses in waves. Every muscle in his body begs him to stop. But the platoon keeps pushing, house to house, room to room, while half the men cough blood, fight cramps, or scratch at lice that never die. Outside, the German paratroopers unleash another barrage, and for the first time, the Canadians understand the real terror of Ortona. They must fight one of the deadliest street battles of the war while their own bodies are collapsing from within. December 22nd, 1943. Via Costantinopoli, Ortona. The blast from Mercer's gammon bomb is still ringing in his skull as the platoon claws its way into the next building, a former tailor's shop. Dust hangs suspended in the sunlight like drifting snow. The only untouched object in the room is a mannequin lying face down, its wooden arm reaching outward as if begging to be saved. Mercer coughs once, twice, then doubles over. What comes out is red, thin, threaded with mucus. Sergeant Hall steadies him. "Hold it together, Davy, just a bit longer." But Mercer can see the fear in Hall's eyes. The fever has bloomed beneath Mercer's skin, a blotchy rash creeping up his collar across his chest. His joints throb. His vision flickers like a dying bulb. Before he can answer, German grenades clatter through the doorway. "Down!" The detonation turns the tailor shop into a geyser of splinters and stone. Shattered needles rain across the room. A table flips completely over. Harris, already sick and shaking, screams as his ears start ringing uncontrollably. Through the smoke comes the flat crack of an MG-42. The Germans are close. Too close. Fraser curls to the window, peeking out through a slit in the debris. Paratroopers dug in at the intersection. They've got lanes across both streets. No movement unless we smoke them. We're out of smoke, Hall reminds him, and the Saskatoon Light Infantry's mortars can't see this angle. Fraser nods grimly. Then we mouse hole again, and again, and again. The men know what that means. Every blast tears lungs raw, burns oxygen, scatters lice, spreads infection. But there is no alternative. Mercer slumps against the wall, trying to focus. His fever is now so intense, his hands look like they belong to someone else. Trembling, too pale, veins standing out like thin blue wires. "Davy," Hall whispers, "you need a break." Mercer shakes his head. "There's no break in Ortona." He forces himself upright. He has to. They all have to. The platoon sets another charge on the far wall. Mercer braces himself, eyes squeezed shut. The explosion rips through the stone, sending dust blasting into their faces, filling their mouths with chalk. The air becomes thick enough to chew. They push through the new hole, stumbling into a pitch-black wine cellar. Shelves toppled, bottles smashed. The smell of sour grapes mixing with sewage. Water seeps across the floor from a burst pipe, carrying lice and human filth in its current. Private Harris drops to one knee, clutching his stomach. "My guts! Sarge! I can't!" His voice dies in a wet gurgle. A German soldier fires from the shadows, muzzle flash illuminating his helmet just long enough for Mercer to see the insignia of the 1st Parachute Division. Reflex takes over again. Mercer's Lee Enfield kicks against his shoulder. The paratrooper collapses behind a stack of broken crates. Mercer tries to reload but fumbles the rounds, his fingers too numb with fever to work the bolt properly. Hall takes over, finishing the job for him. Above them, the city groans. Bombardments shake dust from the rafters. Somewhere distant, a Canadian Churchill tank roars, its engine coughing like a sick beast. Fraser signals upward. "We need to get back above the cellars. Germans are using the basements as kill zones." They climb a half-collapsed staircase, emerging into a ruined dining room. Table overturned, wine glasses shattered, wallpaper peeling in long, mold-stained ribbons. Then Mercer sees it. A Canadian stretcher-bearer lying dead across the doorway, his medical satchel torn open, vials scattered. A note pinned to his tunic reads, "Sniper, do not attempt rescue." Fraser swears softly. "No medics left within 4 blocks. We're on our own." The truth crashes down on the platoon like a hammer. There will be no treatment, no bandages, no morphine, no antiseptic. Gun cleaning oil is their disinfectant. Boiled socks are their only protection from lice. Water is rationed by spoonfuls, and even that carries disease. A shell hits the street outside. Plaster showers from the ceiling. Mercer sinks to one knee, gripping the table leg for support. The fever is a living thing now, gnawing at him from the inside. Harris whispers, barely audible, "If we don't die from bullets, we'll die from this sickness." Hall answers without hesitation. "Then you keep fighting until one of them gets you. That's Ortona." They push forward, stumbling deeper into the maze of rooms, their bodies failing but their resolve hardening into something grim, something beyond courage, something born of pure necessity. Because the streets of Ortona are drinking men alive, and the only way out is through. December 24th, 1943. Piazza Plebiscito, Ortona. The church bells are silent now, either destroyed by shell fire or ringing only inside the skulls of feverish men. Snowflakes drift through blown-out windows as Mercer and what's left of the platoon push into the central district. Mercer can barely feel his feet. They're numb, soaked, and swollen inside his boots. Trench fever mixed with dysentery stealing the last of his strength. Every time he blinks, the world tilts violently. His uniform is stiff with dried sweat and the oily residue of burned lice. A dark doorway yawns to their right. A mortar crashes somewhere behind them. "Move!" Fraser orders. But the men don't need to be told. Standing still in Ortona is suicide. They spill into a narrow hallway, the plaster walls scarred with bullet holes and fingerprints of soot. The smell of rot is overpowering. German and Canadian dead lie uncollected in adjoining rooms, unreachable under machine gun coverage. Private Harris coughs so hard he collapses to all fours. Mercer tries to help him up, but his arms shake too violently. Hall grabs both men, hauling them deeper inside. "We don't stop. We don't stop for anything." The hallway ends at a staircase choked with debris. German voices murmur from above. Paratroopers. Fraser signals silently. Grenade, stairs, rush. Corporal Jenkins, who's been silent all morning, pulls the pin with his teeth and rolls the grenade upward. The explosion throws dust down in a suffocating wave. The platoon charges. Mercer's fever turns the world into a tunnel, sound muffled, heartbeat thunderous. He stumbles as he reaches the top of the stairs, nearly firing into Hall by accident. His rifle is shaking so badly he can't keep the sight steady. A German paratrooper lunges from behind a fallen beam, bayonet extended. Mercer tries to raise his rifle, but his arms respond a second too late. Hall intercepts the attack, smashing the German aside with the butt of his Sten. The paratrooper hits the wall and slides down, leaving a streak of blood as he falls. "Davy, focus!" Hall growls, gripping Mercer's collar. "If you fall, we all fall." Mercer nods weakly. He tries to say, "I'm fine," but the words die in a dry rasp. The platoon pushes onward. They enter a grand hallway once lined with portraits, now burned away by flamethrowers or ripped apart by shrapnel. Every step kicks ash into the air. Fraser inspects a doorway ahead. "German MG position just beyond. We take this building. We can flank the square." Hall gestures to the men. "Set the charge!" But before they can place it, the floor trembles. A German demolition charge detonates under the next building over, collapsing its entire front wall. A cloud of pulverized stone roars down the hallway like a hurricane. Mercer is thrown onto his back. Dust blinds him. His ears ring as if a church bell has been strapped to each side of his skull. He gasps for breath, but the air is mud-thick with chalk. His lungs burn. He coughs and something warm, blood, spills into his mouth. Hands grab him, Hall again, dragging him through debris, shouting words Mercer can't hear. Shapes flicker through the haze, German silhouettes moving toward them, rifles raised. Fraser's voice cuts through the dust. "Ambush! Take cover!" Gunfire crackles in the smothering air. The muzzle flashes look like tiny explosions in a swirling sandstorm. Mercer forces himself onto his elbows. He tries to lift his rifle. His hands betray him, trembling uncontrollably. He can barely function, barely see. Then something cold touches his cheek. A helmet. His own helmet, knocked loose. He shoves it back onto his head, blinking hard until shapes return. The Germans are retreating, driven back by Hall's Sten and Fraser's perfectly timed grenade. The echoes fade, leaving only the labored breathing of sick men fighting in a poisoned city. Harris crawls to a wall and retches violently. Nothing comes out. He hasn't eaten in a day. He shivers uncontrollably, teeth chattering despite the fever blazing under his skin. Fraser wipes dust from his face. "We can't hold this corridor. We move through the apartments to the north. If we take the Santa Maria district, we cut their line." Hall looks at Mercer, pale, shaking, barely conscious. "You can walk?" Mercer nods. He doesn't know if he's lying. The platoon pushes deeper into the ruins, stepping over fallen beams and shattered tile. The air is cold but heavy with infection. Lice crawl under collars. Dysentery cramps twist guts. Fevers boil brains. And still, they move. One room at a time. One wall at a time, one breath at a time. Outside, Ortona explodes again, the city itself refusing to let them survive long enough to win. December 26, 1943. Santa Maria District, Ortona. The dawn light is gray, washed out, almost colorless, like the faces of the men pushing through the wreckage. Mercer staggers behind Hall, one hand on the wall to steady himself. His fever has peaked. Every heartbeat is a hammer blow. Every blink feels like sinking into black water. The platoon enters a ruined apartment where the ceiling hangs in jagged sheets and the floor is carpeted with broken furniture. A dead German paratrooper lies slumped over a dining table, his hand still clutching a rosary. The room is freezing, but the men sweat like they're standing in a furnace. Hall scans the hallway. "We're close," he whispers. Close to what? Mercer isn't sure. Survival? Death? Victory? In Ortona, all three feel the same. They creep forward until a blast of gunfire erupts from a collapsed doorway. Fraser fires back instantly, dropping a paratrooper who had been hiding behind a half-destroyed wardrobe. The body folds into the rubble like a puppet with its strings cut. Mercer steps over it, swaying. He feels suddenly weightless, like his boots no longer touch the floor. "Davy!" Hall grabs him before he collapses. "Stay with me, soldier!" Mercer tries to speak, but only manages a tremor. His eyes drift toward the broken window, where snowflakes drift sideways on the wind. He wonders if this is how fever takes a man, quietly, without drama, while the world keeps burning around him. But the world does not stay quiet for long. A deep metallic roar shakes the street outside, a Churchill tank. Fraser risks a glance through a shattered shutter. "The Three Rivers Regiment broke through! They're pushing the square!" Hope, a tiny, fragile thing, flickers in the room. The platoon spills outside into the courtyard behind Santa Maria. Smoke drifts through the alleys. German positions crumble under the pressure of armor smashing through barricades. The sound of tank treads grinding over debris echoes like thunder. But as they advance toward the square, they find something worse than an enemy. Rows of wounded Canadians, men from different regiments, lie propped against walls, too sick to walk, too weak to stand. Their helmets are off. Their faces glow red with fever. Some mumble nonsense. Some stare coldly ahead, lost in delirium. A stretcher-bearer, barely more than a boy, approaches Hall. "We can't move them," he says, voice breaking. "If we try, they'll die in the street." Hall kneels beside one of the men, a sergeant from the Seaforth Highlanders. The man's lips are cracked, his eyes sunken. He whispers, "Don't let them burn us out." Hall grips his shoulder. "We won't." Fraser looks up the street to where German paratroopers are firing from behind shattered balconies. "We end it now," he says quietly. "We push them out of Santa Maria or those men die right here." The platoon moves. The Churchill tank leads, firing into a fortified building and blasting its entire facade outward. The explosion showers the Canadians with dust and debris. Mercer stumbles behind Hall, rifle clutched to his chest, mouth tasting of blood and bile. A German machine gun opens up from a balcony. Bullets scream over the tank crew as they duck behind armor. Fraser signals to Jenkins, who tosses a grenade with the last of his strength. It arcs upward, lands in the rubble of the balcony, and detonates with a sickening crack. The MG nest falls silent. The Canadians surge forward. Mercer barely feels his boots touch the ground anymore. His fever is a blinding white light behind his eyes. But something pulls him onward. Not strength, not willpower, something deeper. Something born of every man dying behind them in the courtyard. Hall shouts, "Paratroopers pulling back! Keep pushing!" The Germans retreat through the next street, leaving rifles, crates, even boots behind. Their defensive line is collapsing under the combined weight of armor, grenades, and men too sick to stand but too stubborn to break. And then, suddenly, the firing stops. The silence is eerie, unnatural, like a blanket thrown over the city's throat. Fraser lowers his weapon. Hall releases a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The Santa Maria district is theirs. Mercer collapses to his knees, not in surrender, in relief. His helmet slides off and clatters onto the cobblestones. Hall catches him before he falls sideways. "You did it, Davy," Hall whispers. "You made it." The courtyard behind them fills with stretcher bearers moving in now that the streets are clear. The wounded are lifted carefully, finally able to be evacuated after days of hell. Snow drifts down onto the ruined square, dusting the helmets of Canadians who are too sick to celebrate and too exhausted to speak. Fraser surveys the broken skyline of Ortona. "This isn't the end," he says, "but it's the turning point." It is, because the battle will drag on for days more, but Santa Maria was the hinge on which the rest of Ortona swung open, and the men who took it were half dead from disease before they ever fired a shot. Canadian troops didn't just win a battle here. They conquered a city designed to kill them, while fighting an invisible enemy inside their own blood. Snow falls harder. Mercer leans against Hall, eyes half closed, the fever finally loosening its claws. Ortona is not yet silent, but for the first time in days, the Canadians can hear the sound of victory breathing through the ruins.